Welcome to the Laye&Lucy TV. I'm Lucy.
I'm Laye. We would love to talk about the most important story that goes around in Africa now about xenophobic against African in South Africa. So welcome and let us have some discussion about it. How can we start?
We can start from anywhere.
What is the term xenophobia mean?
Xenophobia, to put it simply, is the hatred or fear of foreigners and targeting foreigners by othering them. So we've seen this happening, or we've seen the violence which is happening against migrants who are living in South Africa and who are working there. So that can be termed as xenophobia, because we see there's so much anger and hatred and accusations leveled against them for being people who don't belong in that country. So there is some racial and class dimension which is enmeshed in that term. Although I know there are some people or researchers who would like to call what is happening against immigrants or migrants in South Africa, some want to call it Afrophobia, because it is mainly targeting the Black African migrant as opposed to the white, Asian, the Middle Eastern migrants who are living and working or have businesses in South Africa.
Yeah, I myself believe so. This is not about xenophobic, because the term is xenophobic. It should include Chinese, but why Chinese are treated differently, why Indian are treated differently, why European descent or Arab descent are treated differently, but not African. African that help them push away apartheid, help them, for example, Mozambican, Zimbabwean, Nigerian, Kenyan, the government, all of them subsidize some resources for them, train their freedom fighter, give them different passport to travel around the continent and other area. And now they don't see some other people, just African, like Nigerian, like Mozambican, Kenyan, Somalian, shop owner. So they are being targeted. So I agree that it is not about xenophobic, it is about Afrophobic, if that is the term. This is not the first time, in 2008, it happened. And 2015, it happened. 2019, it happened. And some people die. And this time again, we see the same thing happening. And the government, they are not doing a lot of things. I think that they should have done something. What about Pan-Africanism? I don't know. What can we say about that?
Okay. Maybe I want to address the recurrence or the pattern that you have mentioned about it occurring many times. I think impunity is part of the pattern which enables or helps perpetuate this. Why am I saying this? It's because where we see there is an absence of accountability, like someone facing the law or victims who have been affected getting justice, because it's not just to attack someone who is legally in the country, running a business, employing people, and for whatever reasons which you find justified to you, you attack them out of that fear or hatred because they are not from the country. So the thing is that the absence of prosecution of these people who are enabling or who are encouraging this then ensures that this cycle continues. And to add on to that, I think this xenophobia or the anger and hatred is just misplaced because it ties mainly to the economics, the hardship which the Black South Africans are facing for various reasons. Why are they facing these economic issues? It's because of their history, the apartheid history and policies or things have been normalized during the apartheid. And in 1994, there were different or various agreements which were entered into by the ANC government or Mandela government, because the Mandela was the one who took the leadership of South Africa, post-apartheid South Africa. There are different agreements which were entered into to ensure that there is justice and the structural violence which most Black South Africans had faced for generations is addressed. But that has not been addressed, and that is the issue which is mainly causing this economic hardship.
Yeah, I think economic hardship, as you said, it's rooted, it is historic evident where we have seen Black farmers was removed from their land and and their land was given to a white farmer, and that bring inequality in a society. Inequality is measured by Gini coefficients, and South Africa is almost, I think, 67. So that is very high. So from apartheid time to today, we have seen that it has been some Black people has have got a job, but it has not reduced the inequality in a society. So inequality is also, it can be seen also as a community dimension. So, for example, if you are a Black person and then you see that another Black person don't have nothing, so you don't have nothing to talk about. But when you see, I just want us to see inequality in two dimensions. The first is in group, and the second one is intergroup. So now this xenophobic attack is much more concentrated in group, because we are Black. We see who in our community get money, the job, get income, and who doesn't have it. If I compare myself to the person who get it, I will get furious. I will get angry, and that will lead to violence. But what they don't compare is intergroup, because the white farmer, the white community, they have the economy, they have the capital. So that do not mean that they have to have a better political solution, to address the country. So that is what I see. Because attacking Somali shop owner or Eritrean shop owner or Nigerian businessman or Zimbabwean school teacher because she got a job that will not be a solution. As you said, that the need to apply the law should be same to everybody. So it should not mean because I'm South African, I can harass, I can beat other person because they are not in their home. And Africa and the African continent is not just for South African or Zulu people, it's for everybody. So long you are Black or you are white, you are living there illegally, so it's belong for everybody. Yeah, that's what I can say about that.
And the economic drivers, for me, one of the things I really want to concentrate my analysis is on the economic aspect and the frustration of the Black South African. And I really feel that the post-apartheid government of Mandela failed the Black South Africans.
How?
And I just alluded to the Gini coefficient of South Africa to be around 67. Researchers out there have argued that South Africa is the most unequal society. I believe it is true. Why? Because if about 80% of the wealth and of the land is owned by a particular race, the white South Africans, the descendants of the perpetrators of apartheid and colonialism, and of all the historical injustices and abuses that many generations of South Africans have faced or have gone through. It's that there's still this underlying trauma. And why I'm saying the Mandela government failed is that there was an understanding that the people who perpetrated these historical injustices of apartheid, colonialism, and all other structural injustices will be prosecuted. They went ahead and formed the TRC. But one message which the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of South Africa was speaking, which was headed by an African, by the way, Desmond Tutu, who is the one who was sharing this. He told him and Mandela, the then president, told his people, forgive and forget. How do you forgive and forget the things which have been done for many generations? How do you forgive and forget while these perpetrators continue to hold land which was yours or belonged to your ancestors, and you don't have anywhere to live? So if we say 80% of the land is owned by white South Africans, it means that the apartheid never left. These descendants of the black South Africa, the original owners of the land, and their descendants don't have anywhere to live apart from these slums. Most of them live in slums, and townships. And then, land is very vital, especially in the African context. Land is a means of production. With land comes the identity. So there is an identity crisis in South Africa for the original owners of the land. They don't even have a place, a means of production. And apart from that, there were very many policies which were there in the colonial era as well as in the apartheid South Africa. So you find very many things like whites being the higher echelon and the blacks being the lowest cadre. Also, schools were not available for the black. So these also, in effect, makes or perpetuates what we now see, because different generations were locked out of school, and then the generations which came in after the apartheid were able to get into school. But then, most of them were probably adults. You would have to choose, do I go to school or do I start fending for my family and surviving? So you had to make choices. And then you had this hope that land will be expropriated and I will get somewhere where I can probably farm and be able to support my family, because I don't have education which will allow me to be employed in an office or in these white collar jobs or in jobs which need skills. So the economic frustration, in my perspective, is what is fueling the xenophobia. What do you think?
I agree. As you said, we should forgive and forget, but that do not mean we should not redistribute the wealth. The wealth is supposed to be redistributed. That so it can go into benefit for everybody. Because if the redistribution is not happening, so which means there is something mal in the society. So if we see the inequality if there's an inequality in a society, that will affect the democracy. That will affect democracy, that will affect the rule of law. For example, we've seen these days that African migrants have been attacked. Where's the state? Is it like the state is failed? It's mean is when there is no rule of law, or if there is a law there but it is not applicable. So why should you have a double law? That a law that protect white minority, Asian, and Black South African, but is not protecting the migrant? So that will take us to class society. That the Zulu, the Xhosa, the same society, they were fighting, So I think South African, they need to come together and think what can they do, because this is not good for their country. Their country has been seen in the world as a xenophobic country, the most xenophobic country in the continent. At the same time, they carrying other country to ICC because of racial injustice, while they themselves don't practice the justice for other people. So I feel on a thing is like a double moral. What they are preaching is not what they are doing by themselves. But what can African countries do when their compatriots have been attacked like that? And when they go to hospital and then deny people, they are not the police. They are not immigration official. They are going to hospital and tell the official at hospital, don't give life assistance to this person because he is not from our ethnic. He is not from our country. Who are they? So it also go the same thing as you said. It's rooted of how society was built, because it was built on injustice. It was built on class system, and that has to be ruined. That has to be uprooted so we can go forward. So what do you think African government has to do?
First of all, talking about the African government, first I will want probably to address the politicians in the in South Africa, because we have seen, or there have been statements made by these politicians seemingly sparking the fire, blaming immigrants, like that rhetoric that immigrants are coming to take your jobs, or just the general anti-immigrant sentiment. It should start there with these politicians, and the fact that the politicians are always interested in trying to get into power. So they will lie their way through. And that aspect of scapegoating the immigrant, saying that the immigrant is the one who is coming to take your job. The immigrant is the one who is a criminal. Research has shown that all that is not true. So one thing is encouraging politicians to be truthful, but I know that is it's something which will never happen anywhere in this world, because we know the tendencies of most politicians. To survive, they have to lie their way through all processes. But then there's another thing, which would be educating the masses, especially with the information they receive from the politicians or from their friends. How we share the information is very key, because if I share information which is not correct and people believe it and cause uproar, kill other people or target other people, victimize other people, then that is not correct. So what am I saying? The trying to curb the misinformation, and also trying to encourage proper information, in the sense that education, sensitizing the masses of what the reality is. And also the government of South Africa should address the underlying issue. Of course, I'm not South African. It may be looking it from the aspects of being from the outside looking in, and I am trying to diagnose something I don't have proper knowledge about. But for me, from where I sit, it seems that the underlying issue is the promises which were not addressed at the end of the apartheid. So the government of South Africa should try to keep to the promises. And I believe the Black South African, to be specific, have been failed by their government. And through corruption dealings and other supervening things, the promise for the South African down there has been forgotten.
It's just like the South African problem is bigger than themselves. because it is not just South African problem, it is African problem. It is not even African problem, it is world stage problem. Just imagine some months ago, President of South Africa was in the White House, and then the talk, it was just about this. White farmer, why should government take the land from them? So yeah, so if the government is failing, it is something behind it that we don't see. But that is some other thing. What can they do? It's just like to apply the law. What the law saying? If you encourage people to go and murder, yeah. So maybe the court has to deal with you because you are the one who encourage. You know, if you encourage people to go outside and then burn and the root, burn the shop. So these politicians, they have to be targeted. People need to organize themselves. Yeah, they need to build in Norwegian they call it rettsstaten, lawful law country, the state of law. Because if you don't have a state of law, so that is what happened. Because when you empower the law, you empower the court. So things like this will never happen. And because the police are there when this violence is happening, yeah, of course, they just need to.
Actually, some of them are perpetuating this xenophobia. You find them harassing or committing crimes against migrants because they're taking advantage of the general situation. There have been videos going round where you see the police also harassing migrants, and it is sad. The police is the one who is supposed to protect everyone, whether you are a citizen or a non-citizen, but they are taking advantage of the situation to
So can I cut you that should be the first episode of this, and the second episode should continue about the crime and the South African state itself can do, and what can African themselves do, especially Ghanaian, Nigerian, Kenyan, Mozambican, what can they do, their country? So
sure.
What will be your final word?
My final words. It is unfortunate what is happening in South Africa, where we see fellow Africans are targeted by fellow Africans and they are othered, but you find the other non-Africans are not targeted. In fact, they are called for meetings by these goons who are running around killing and maiming and doing all manner of harassment and telling them, we know you are not South African, but we encourage you to fire all people you have employed, especially if they are not South Africans, so that you can continue staying peacefully in this country. It is quite sad to see that state of affairs. I would just urge my South African brothers and sisters to reevaluate, to think about the underlying cause. I know they're angry, and their anger or the reason why they are angry needs to be addressed. But it can't be addressed by killing or by removing people who are legally in the country. I know, yes, there are people who are immigrants who may have found themselves illegally in that country, but that is besides the point, because at this moment, it is just it's a generalization where immigrants are taking our jobs. But one thing which is clear is that if you are an immigrant, you can't access government jobs in South Africa. So if you are there, you need to create your own job. That's why they go there, they set up businesses and employ locals and others. I know South Africans also live in different other countries, including in other African countries. So if each and every country was to say, if you are not citizen of this country, get out, it would be chaotic. It would be a short and brutish life, as Thomas Hobbes used to say. So really, South Africa needs to reconsider. I know there is some root cause of all this. They are justified to be angry, but they are not justified to kill or to do all manner of human rights violations that we have seen happening. And they need to put their politicians accountable, because the inequality where the country is owned by a few, but the majority are suffering, is what is causing this.
Thank you so much for your last word. Me to conclude almost the same thing, that there's a historic reason behind this. And yeah, and it need to stop. So inequality in society is just two-way. The first one is just like to compare different society, different race, what the white race have that the black race don't have, is about economy, you know. So, and then the second thing is just like to compare, they comparing themselves to immigrant that don't have nothing, or the refugees that don't have nothing. So I think they have to think higher than that, because immigrants are not the root of their problem. They are even the solution. They help to build the country. They help to pay the tax, and that tax is generating their welfare. The welfare is not, a system is not good enough, but they helping them to pay their rent, to get food. That is the reason they are on the street. So, as you said, they need to put their politician accountable for their fail. So I see also that the politicians are not the only one who fail here. The state, the bureaucrat, the law, the judiciary system, everything have failed. That was my last word. If you enjoy this topic, please tune in and then subscribe and then share.
Thank you for tuning in. We will see you in the next episode.